Good evening, everybody. Marie,
Yes.
I'm going to wait a couple more minutes, then we'll start, okay?
Okay.
Because we don't have a quorum, but I don't think there's any voting tonight. So, but I just want to be respectful and give people a few more minutes to get on. But I will also want to be respectful of the people who came here on time.
I know one thing, Phil, we've always met at 6:30 and this meeting is at 6. I wonder if there are people that are not here because of that.
Yeah, I would hope not. You know, Trina, it's been on the calendar.
No, for sure.
Interested. Okay.
Yeah, I almost made that mistake.
Yeah.
Also, Phil, I know that there are people that are going to be in the audience or participants that are going to want to weigh in. And so we should keep an eye on the chat.
Sure. No problem. No problem. Like I said, we'll wait a couple more minutes.
Is there a way, if there are people, the participants, is there a way, how do we allow them to speak? Do they have to be brought into the meeting proper?
I think they have to go into the Q&A.
Okay, can they actually speak or do we just read their questions?
Ask Marie that. I don't think so, but Marie?
If you're monitoring the chat, you'll be able to see someone raise their hand. And you can
Right.
call on them to speak. And if they're an attendee, I can turn them on to speak at that point in time. It's up to the chair to entertain the public.
Okay. We could do that. I'd rather do that. I'd like to let people, if they're there and they can get on, we'll let them speak. Tell Katie no. No.
I don't understand Katie's question.
She just asked, is her question even on there? Is it coming up on yours? It's not coming up on mine.
Yeah, I don't see anything in the Q&A.
Yeah, right.
I just see, no, I don't, no, Katie, you don't see your question.
No, it's in the chat. She asked a question in the chat.
Oh, I
She
see.
said
Yep.
there might be some other community members interested in McCarran who are trying to get on. Will they be able to get on?
She's in the chat.
But I
Yes.
guess I don't understand her question. Get on in that, will they be able to speak? And I guess, Katie, the answer is if you raise your hand, we can call on you and bring you in.
Sure.
People call on you and others.
Before he starts, she wants to know, how does she raise her hand? Marie, how does she do that?
Yeah, they should have a panel on the bottom where they can raise their hand.
Okay. Okay. You know what? It's 6:12. We'll hopefully whoever's coming in will join us, but everyone else, we're ready to go. So I'd like to start the meeting. The item on the agenda is the Mcatlan Park Fieldhouse. I just want to bring you up to speed on it. This was actually on our agenda on our October 30th, our Parks meeting, 2019. We heard the presentation. We were enthusiastic about it. this was the concerns that we had, that we relayed to Parks. One, inadequate number of bathrooms, the proposed maintenance building that was placed adjacent to the park house, the concerns about the restaurant's incursion into the oval, the only passive section of McCarran Park, concerns about the lack of keeping alcohol off of the park grounds, and also the potential for noise. Those were the main concerns that we had when we voted against this proposal. We haven't heard from anybody in all this time, and I understand maybe because of COVID, but we received nothing back. And then all of a sudden, we understand that they're, and I was there too. They're beginning work on the park house, and we just don't understand that. So maybe they could bring us up to speed on how they answered some of our concerns here.
Maybe I can start addressing some of that. We have come back. We went to the full board, and then we had several follow-up meetings with the committee and committee chair. Eric, maybe you can fill us in on the specific number and who we spoke with, but there was a healthy discussion and back and forth and substantial changes made to the design. Commissioner Marr spoke to the board as well, and we can highlight some of those some of the changes that again we did present to the board. Eric, why don't you just, if you can fill in some of the.
Sure. Yeah. And again, I wish I had the dates in front of me. I don't have them. But to my recollection, we did attend a full board meeting. And Parks also did have follow-up conversations with you, I believe Phil and Jerry, to address your letter. And we did go point by point and did discuss all of the concerns.
So I can kind of catalog, some of the highlights of what was changed, and then I'll maybe just introduce Jonathan to kind of go through where we are now, but and give you an update on what's happened since last October and our subsequent meetings with the board. So we have added restrooms inside, public restrooms inside the facility. After that initial meeting, we increased the restrooms inside the restaurant as well. We have made the adjustments to the satellite building, made it substantially smaller, changed the profile so it's less obtrusive in the landscape. We've looked at color schemes. We've looked at details to the building itself, again, to reduce the scale and the footprint. And we, sorry, I got a Riley dog here. And we've made several, we've had several discussions about potentially adding temporary restrooms to the footprint. We've gone pretty much as far as we could go in the footprint of the building itself to accommodate the public restrooms versus the park staff, Parks M&O staff, which has space is going to be maintained in the building, consolidated and a little bit tighter. And then we're going to then we're also sorry, the dog distracted me. Yeah, so we've made substantial changes to the design in direct response to the comments made initially. And we did get the blessing to move forward with an understanding of this plan that we've developed. And we did go to the community board. We received both conceptual and preliminary approvals from the Public Design Commission. We have gone to the building department with the interior fit out. So that's going to happen on a separate track. And that's the work you're seeing now. So the interior fit out is going to happen now as we're working towards the final approval from the Public Design Committee Commission for the exterior work, which includes the expansion. So the interior fit out is going to include the new restrooms, renovating the existing restrooms, the fit out of the concession space for the restaurant, and the parks staff. What will come afterwards, the exterior work, is that satellite building, the extensions, the 2 extensions for the dining rooms, and the exterior facade restoration and improvements. So that's still pending final PDC approval, but we're close to that. The architect's developing the construction documents for that, and that will be submitted hopefully before the end of the year, and we'll have that approval in hand. The contractor is on site. He's brought in temporary facilities for the park staff. They've been they're in transition to the temporary facilities, which we anticipate just being there this winter into early spring. But the hope is that to actually have everybody move back into the building by late spring, early
The
summer.
top one, the ones that www.nyc.gov. Yeah. I don't know why there were 2 different ones. That's weird.
Katie, we can hear you.
So that's actually a good break. If you want to see, where we are now, I can turn this over to Jonathan to kind of walk us through some of the images of the design, and we can talk to in more detail about the design changes that have been made and where we're at.
Yeah, that would be good. Let's see what's going on.
Okay, go ahead, Jonathan.
Okay. Do you guys need to do something for me to share my screen? I don't see the option currently available.
Okay, I believe I have to do that for you.
Okay.
Okay.
So, yeah,
I'm sorry, which email are you using?
Jonathan at katismastudio.com.
We just
So, I think, yeah, it's been, I think as we're all pointing out here, it's been a long road. We came to you a year ago, and there has been substantial changes both via your comments and comments from the Public Design Commission. We've been working with them also very closely on this. And it looks like, our last presentation was in April, in March. Yes?
Do you have the controls on the top that says
I
share?
do now. There we go. Perfect.
Okay.
Okay, let me just pull it up. Great. Okay, I am sharing. Do you guys see my screen?
yes.
Unfortunately, it's covering the thing to let me just do a nice presentation, but this will have to do. Oh, here we go. Okay. All right. So, yeah, what we have first is just to show the plan again, and I think it's as Tony pointed out, and it has changed substantially, certainly from when we came to you a year ago. In particular, from the original bathroom count, we now have a total of, we have 4, 8, 9, 10 stalls and the same amount of urinals, 2 of those being fully accessible bathrooms. And that's an increase of 150% of what the current bathroom total is. One of the other main concerns, as Tony said, was our accessory building here, which was, a requirement in order to still give M&O the proper facilities they require to take care of the park. And as he noted, we greatly changed both the geometry and size of that building to be a more sort of delicate impact on the park. We've also worked very hard to make sort of the materiality of that be a more sort of conscientious blending with the existing building and with the surroundings. And then, I think the other thing was about the sort of passive nature of this park, and really all we've tried to do is add a just another beautiful element to that passive nature, as it's still part of the passive part of the park. And anybody can use this patio as anybody can use the rest of the green space around it. So, we just wanted to show again, I guess, these renderings. And I did just take a look. These were presented basically in this kind of nature the last time we were in front of you guys, or in front of the full board. And so what you have here is, as I was saying, we've greatly reduced and tried to minimize this as much as possible, and really tried to have it speak with the existing building, which we are, cleaning up very aggressively, new windows, and everything to kind of be, bright and shiny for the park, as it were. We have a few images from the rear with our minimal extensions, the idea being to really still give as much prominence to the existing structure as possible, kind of working with the existing structures, rhythms for this, and also, being able to really see into this wall, which at one point obviously was exterior, is now interior. And as you can see from this passive side, really the additional building is going to be more or less concealed. It's going to be between the plantings and between just where it's located. It's going to be quite a small, minimal element. We also just wanted to show an idea about at nighttime, because during the day, these doors can be fully open. At night, they could be closed. And, once again, it's sort of, we see it as an elegant kind of beacon, an element in the park for park goers, at all times. And then this is an image of the patio that we were discussing. Our hope is that it blends very nicely with people sitting in the park and being able to come and sit on a chair. There are added amenities with this. There's going to be outlets. There's going to be obviously food offerings. And there's an area where you can actually sit in a chair and not just on the grass. So I think we're really adding to sort of the diversity of offerings of this passive zone of the park. Once again, trying to make the architecture speak as much as possible with the existing building, both the new patio and the structure itself, giving it a, working with something that is complementary with what is existing. And those are kind of the main. Oh, so then, we did want to note that one of the things from the Public Design Commission is actually the color of this building. We basically, throughout the design process, we need to continue this exploration, and we need to be doing mock-ups on site, which we are scheduling. And so those will look at some different material finishes in relationship to what we do with the park house. So that's both for this new building over here, the accessory building, and as well as for the structure on the back. So in this version, the Public Design Commission has asked us to look at a more, I guess what you would say is like a more standard sort of finish, like a gray sort of masonry look, and metal looking like metal. And so as opposed to a painted or more pigmented version that we were showing before. So these are the same images with that different look. And we just thought it was important to show you that, since these are both on the table. PDC is actually quite interested in this version. So we thought that was important for you to understand as well. But other than that, we haven't made any other developments. I think as Tony noted, we got our preliminary and conceptual approval from PDC. We got our approval for the interior work from the DOB, and that commenced with a permit at the beginning of last week. And we are starting demolition, and our expected we are expecting to complete the project by summer 2021. So we hope to infringe on the park use as minimally as possible in the coming year, and to mostly focus our efforts during this late fall and winter season and early spring.
Jonathan, did you guys address, our concerns for the noise and our concerns about, people buying, because I know you're putting for a liquor license or you're in the process of buying liquor and then wandering into the park when they shouldn't be doing that?
They, when BK Bazaar goes forward with their liquor license, they have started that process and they plan to come before you. They will take care of all the necessary requirements. I mean, fundamentally, this hedging that we've provided, that's sort of our initial barrier between the sort of the area where you can't obviously bring your drink, but they will also have staff, and I mean they're coming up with all the necessary plans to make sure that it's a legally operating and kind of supportive area for the community. They have no interest in it becoming some like party scene on the green outside of it. And then as far as noise goes, they are they're working within the confines, the hours of the park, and they're responsive to neighbors. They always have been. So these interior spaces allow for people to just be inside, and then they'll of course have staff on. So if they'll be available to make sure that everything is being appropriately taken care of.
And one other thing to note, unlike some of our concessions, PEP is actually on site. So it is a finable offense to have alcohol outside of a designated area. So there'll be signage to that effect. And if people are abusing that somehow, getting around the controls that we're putting in place, the last line of defense is literally our PEP officers issuing summonses. So, we do think there'll be a healthy deterrent for anybody taking alcohol illegally outside of the designated area.
Mm-hmm. And I think one more concern we had was something to do with lighting. We were wondering if there was going to be additional lighting in the area.
Yeah, no, we are only replacing the existing lights that are at different entries, for safety, the front, the rear, and the two sides going to the public facilities, and then what will now be the M&O entry. We're not adding any other exterior lighting other than the building itself, which will be minimal because there's a sort of ambiance that there will be desired.
What about the patio? Will it have internal lighting there, like at night?
The only thing planned for that is string lights. So very delicate, addition to the exterior that'll be sort of tethered from the edge of the patio to the building itself, but nothing, low LED or incandescent lights, basically.
In what you sent around, it looked like there were two options for some of the coloring. There was a silver version and then a version that seemed to blend more with the existing color. And I thought I read that Mary said there was a preference for the silver version. Can you go over that and explain that preference?
Well, so to clarify that, our preference is actually the other version, but PDC was quite intent on us providing this version. So I guess that that's the only thing holding us back from a full approval from PDC. We have our construction documents showing, they've approved all of the design except for basically these finishes. So we're going through the process now to make, like I was saying, we're making mock-ups, comparing some of these color options and testing a few things that we will present to PDC with our final submission, and they'll weigh in. But I'm sure if you guys have, we're interested, I think, to some degree, and we're interested in your thoughts on it, because all these voices need to be sort of a part of it.
I think the preference for the community board that was stated in the letter to you guys in February was for the building not to be placed adjacent to the park house for the garage. And I know you guys have worked with parks, but can you explain why that building can't go in the periphery of the park where
Yeah,
maybe you can help explain?
I mean, I think I'm sure Anthony and Eric and Mary can all speak to it a little more clearly, but just basically, my understanding there is nowhere else it can go. Not only that, I think this is actually probably seems to have been the more important issue, is that the maintenance and operations staff needs their tools, needs their vehicles directly, adjacent to their offices. And as Tony was noting, both M&O staff as well as PEP are both still being housed in this building. So this is still their office space, still their space in the park. So, there really isn't another option. Even if we wanted to put it somewhere else and there was space, it actually wouldn't satisfy M&O's needs as far as their ability to properly serve the park.
Just to follow up on that, I mean, I'm all for making the parks workers' lives easier. They're heroic in the work they're doing all the time, but especially during the pandemic times. But I'm gonna call it an accessory building. By another name, it's a garage. It really just kind of violates the whole spirit of the park, especially that section and the building. Jonathan, well, where that was designed by, maybe I'm wrong. I thought it was the architects who designed the original Penn Station. And what I'm really worried about is when people enter the park from, I guess it'd be Driggs and Lorimer, and they're just sort of, confronted by this appendage to the building that's unnatural and wasn't part of the original, and so, and then another, I just want to bring this up also. I have a real, like what Willis brought up in the email exchange was just the process. I mean, my understanding is that all capital projects, public capital projects within a community district have to come before the community board. And then with parks projects, I mean, we just feel like we've had a process where they come to the committee, they vote on it, then it goes to full board, and they vote on it. If there's a, basically rejection of a design, then parks goes back, and they come back with another version, and then that's reconsidered. And so at that full board meeting, if I remember correctly, the full board took a vote basically saying no until these issues are resolved. So I think we're all kind of taken back that construction has commenced, as seeing the construction buildings on site. So.
And the vote of the full board was reflected in a letter to Commissioner Silver dated February 11th. So you guys, the last time you were at the community board was in February, if I've got it right. And that's when the board, when you presented to the full board, having come to the committee, and that's when the full board voted, I think unanimously, or there was one no vote, but everyone else voted to support the letter with the list of grievances or problems that the community board saw with the design. And that was the last formal communication between your firm and the community board.
Between our firm and the community board?
Yeah, you gentlemen said some about April. We had no meetings in April. The board.
Yeah, you're right. I think I was looking at, apologies for that. I realized that presentation was made in part of the conversations that Parks was continuing with your committee that was, not related to actual physical meetings. So, but that was a presentation that we definitely submitted.
I don't think Parks, there wasn't formal communication between Parks and our committee. Mary, right?
I can't speak to that.
Yeah.
So I think there were some emails. I don't know if there were other conversations, but, there was, Trina, I think you and I had some emails about the design, and I sent you some of the changes that were going on.
Right, in August, I did see.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, there was a back and forth after those meetings where we responded to the letter. with both substantial changes to the design and ongoing conversations between the borough commissioner, myself, Eric, Mary, and the board. So that's where we move forward. It is important to note this is not a capitally funded project. It is a concession privately funded project, and it does have some different parameters it's the community. While we always want to make the community board happy and we always respond to their comments, it is not a binding vote. So the Public Design Commission was aware of the letter that was issued and the concerns. The commissioner was aware of the comments and our direction was to make changes, negotiate basically, and have discussions with the chair, and come to an understanding on something that was as successful as we can be given all the. But we do have a license agreement with an operator to move forward, and they have we can't unreasonably withhold them from proceeding on that license agreement. They have financial commitments to the city, including a substantial capital investment and fees to the city. We, quite frankly, are ecstatic that at this time they're still willing to move forward and make this investment. The city is in dire need of revenue right now, and this will generate revenue. We think the design is in a tasteful, actually elegant solution to a very complex set of requirements. Keeping the public restrooms not only open, but expanding them, providing enough support space for a successful concession, and still accommodating our park staff. So we've had, as Jonathan mentioned, it was a long road to get to where we were, and we felt we made as many concessions as we possibly could for all the interested stakeholders to make this a project that we think is going to be a real benefit for the city and for the community and for the park goers there. We consider this a really nice amenity that's coming here at a time when most people are closing up shop and we're trying to open something new. So.
Excuse me, there's a question in the chat asking if you can explain the licensing agreement, private versus public capital funding in a public park and community approval.
Right. So this is a concession. They are operating under a license agreement with the City of New York Parks Department. They have certain obligations. It was competitively bid. This was put out in an RFP. Eric, do you know what year? It's probably 3 years back now that we released that. And that RFP was announced to the community board as part of our process that we were soliciting proposals. The proposals, they're not bids, they're proposals. So we get to evaluate them on 5 criteria. The fee offer is one of them, their experience, their design, and their experience and their financial capability. Brooklyn Bazaar's proposal was deemed the best proposal, and we moved forward with them on a license agreement, which was negotiated, but it's based on what they put in their proposal. In their proposal, they put an estimate for capital. That estimate that they submitted in their proposal becomes their capital commitment to the project. So they are now obligated to spend that on this project. They also have license fees, rent essentially, that will become due to the city once the facility is built. I say it all the time. I'm with the city 20 years. I think every one of our concessions is a minor miracle. We not only are asking concessionaires to take full responsibility for the maintenance of the building, to invest capital money, private capital money into the facility, but then on top of that, pay us rent. It's a really good deal for the city, these deals. And this is no exception. We think this is, this was an underutilized building that was in dire need of restoration. It is a McKinney-like design, and we think it, had fallen into some disrepair. through nobody's fault. It just, it didn't get the tender love that a building of this character deserves. And we think this project gets us here with private money. No taxpayer money is going into this. In fact, we're putting tax money into the city's coffers through this project. So, in that respect, this is it's a good deal for the city.
Yeah, I just say I appreciate all of that, and I'd say in general, I'm in favor of the project, and the vendor, Brooklyn Bazaar team, but I do take issue with process, the idea that if a private entity comes in and is going to do a renovation or add a concession to a park, which involves renovating an existing structure and adding a new structure, it feels like somehow the community engagement process is somehow, circumvented or changed. And especially, I consider what's going on here pretty drastic in terms of adding this this accessory building, because again it's a historic building, historic park. Just one like going forward that just that be considered. If there are future types, similar types of projects in our district, in our parks, that because I feel like we've had no votes. I know that almost entirely been for purely public projects. Generally, parks has a new iteration and then come back to the community board to reconsider. And I think there was an expectation based on that would happen. And if there wasn't, I feel like that should have been expressed at some point to the committee and/or the board to have avoided this kind of sort of awkward situation that we're kind of finding ourselves in.
Steve, this is Phil. Yeah, and I agree with you, Steve. To their credit, I will say they have answered a number of our concerns. I do remember talking about, they did look hard about, because I was with you with that. I didn't want that building there. And we said, why can't it be somewhere else in the park? And it just wasn't a possibility. That was the bottom line. So, I think they've tried very hard, and we'll just have to keep an eye on this project as it moves forward right now.
To just address that concern directly for 1 second, we're also, there is, as a part of this design, there's not just the hedge that is surrounding this patio, but extensive plantings happening basically at the ends of each of those. It might just be worth, I'm just going to share my screen one more time just to show it in plan, but I think, Steve, this might clarify it a little bit. If you see it, basically these areas, so where this new building is, and that particular view you were speaking of, it's going to be heavily planted with native plants of varying heights. So really, this building is a bit more of a backdrop to a very luscious planting that's happening here that transitions to this hedge and does the same on this side of the building. So I think, that's to say that is both, I think, an aesthetic desire on our part, but it is also in consideration of some of the concerns and then some of the realities that we've faced throughout this design process. This side, obviously, we have to keep clear. That's for things to drive in and out of, and there's not much we can do about that. But we are wrapping this building as much as possible with vegetation, with beautiful plantings for that to be, I think, softened for the park and for it to blend nicer. And, all these things are things that will be upkept by the concessionaire. We will keep this beautiful. So I just thought it was worthwhile to share that one, because it's a fair point, and we've been dealing with a number of questions and realities, and we've spoken with obviously various boards and many community members, and we've really tried our best to tackle all of the concerns.
And Parks landscape architects work closely with Jonathan and his consultants on the landscape design to be true to the historic landscape architecture here too, with both the species of plants and the arrangement of the plants and new trees. So we really do think, in addition to the building that's going there, that the additional landscaping elements are really going to enhance the space.
Well, I think I would say, I thank you for highlighting that you're going to do that. I think any type of screening or softening with landscaping, with greenery would go a long way, I think, in helping with that issue, that I have. And I just wanted to let Phil and Marie know that Katie Nabotovsky would like to make some comments verbally. I don't know if anyone else, maybe Catherine Thompson
Can
as
she
well.
get in? Steve, can she get in, or she's got to use?
She's in the attendees area.
Okay.
You, Phil, are you going to call on that, so on the person, so I can?
I will. I don't see it on my screen, but verbally, I ask. Yes, you can let her come in and make some comments.
Okay, so you have a couple of people who have asking questions. So you want me to go with the first one? Is Kate Nabotovsky?
All right. Yes.
Okay. Let me just get this
Okay.
going. Kate?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, everybody can hear me, I guess.
Yes.
Okay, so I'd like to address two things. I just would like to address process first in terms of attendees. And then I'd like to address about the building. There is no way really for it to be known that I would like to say something. There is no hand on my panel. There is also not known by me as an attendee whether I will be able to speak or not. Somehow nobody saw or is able to see my questions in the chat. So as a public meeting, which is, for community board members, but it's also for the public to be able to speak if they would like. So what is the process if somebody wants to ask a question, as when we were in person, they were able to do so? What is the process for people to be able to do that? That's my first question.
Marie will have to answer that one.
Because right now there's no process.
Okay, right now what I have on the screen, if you ask a question, it shows up that there's questions being asked, and there's also the chat. So that's where you should put the information in there so it can be addressed by the committee.
That's not what I asked.
Chair.
That's not what I asked. I asked if I want to ask a question verbally, which should be my right. How do I indicate that I want to ask a question verbally?
You would have to put it in the chat and we would turn your microphone on.
Okay, so if any attendees want to ask a question or make a statement, they write in the chat, because nobody saw it in the chat. Can you see what I wrote in the chat?
Yeah, I'm able to see it. I don't know.
I can, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, you can say, you can see that. Okay, who is in charge of looking at the chat? Because I've had to reach out to 2 different people by text. I've written 2 things in the chat, and it's been a little bit aggravating as a public person in this, as an attendee. So who is in charge of reading that somebody says, I would like to speak? Like, is that the board members, or how does that work? I'm sorry, I'm just trying to get process here. Like, who monitors the chat?
We asked the committee to monitor the chat.
Okay, so the committee monitors the chat. So going forward, if somebody wants to speak, an attendee wants to speak, they write in there, I would like to speak, or I'd like to ask a question. And then the committee sees that, and then they're after the board members ask questions, then they can ask. Okay, I have another question in terms of process, and sorry for.
Can you please go on with your questions for the meeting?
No, excuse me. I have a question. I have my right to ask questions, Marie.
No, I'm just.
I am wondering why we do not, first of all, why everybody is not visible, why I cannot see all the attendees. I see Keith Berger's name, but I'm sure there's other attendees. I have no idea who all the attendees are. During other meetings, are all attendees visible?
There's a screen on the bottom. There's a screen that you can toggle through. You don't see that?
I'm toggling through the screen and I cannot see everybody that's an attendee.
Well, I see it. So I don't know what you're looking
That
at.
might be because you're a panelist. Right now I know there's somebody else present watching this meeting and I cannot see that person is.
Yeah, well, I think
here.
that they have their video turned off. Like Jerry, Keith, and Vinny, and the community board hosts, I assume, have their video turned off.
So that's
There's
not,
a
that's
there's a
not what,
participant list that everybody, at least in all the WebExes I've been in, everyone should be able to access.
where is the participant list? Thank you. Where is the participant list? See, I am at a public meeting. I have no idea who's participating in this meeting. And I should be able to, all of these things should be part of public meeting. They should be known by everybody how to access everything. So where's the participant list?
Katie, we'll have to look into it why it's not showing. Okay, so we'll look into it.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. This is really important. We're having virtual meetings, okay? And it is the public's right to be known that they're there, and I should know who's on this meeting, and everybody should have a chance to. I think it needs to be moving forward, really addressed. Okay, so my question is, I'd like to make a comment.
Okay, Katie, just one quick question, Katie. Are you on a phone, iPad, or computer?
I'm on a computer.
Okay, there should be on the top of your computer. I'm on a phone, so it's a little bit different on the phone, but there should be something on the top that says participant list under the drop-down menus from panelists, and I can see everybody who's on. I mean, I'm doing it on my phone, and on the phone there's a little people looking. It looks like a little person button on the upper right corner. That's where I get the participant list.
Hey guys, just to, so when I join and watch, and I'm on the full board meeting, and I'm not a panelist or a participant, and I'm just an attendee, I'm not able to see all the attendees. I'm only able to see the board.
Yeah, I can only see the board. Sorry.
So that's what. So Katie can only see the panelists or participants. She can't see the attendees.
That's right. And
that's what happens at the full. That's what happens at the full board meetings.
Yeah, and so we have no idea who's, and I think during other committee meetings, it is known. Am I right? Are attendees visible in other committee meetings? Steve or Trina?
As a panelist, yeah, I always see participants and attendees.
Okay, so you can, all right, well, I wish we could go to Zoom on this instead of being on WebEx, because I find that this is not democratic. And I think it's really a problem. And then I had to text and bang on the table, whatever, so many times for my chats to be seen. There's something wrong with that. So moving forward, I would like to make a comment, and two comments. One, I really welcome that this group that's doing this is doing it, because I like having businesses that care about what I see as care about the community come in and try to do a good thing. So that's my personal opinion. I think that the maintenance building looks like a garage, and I don't think that's necessary. And I think that it could be changed a little bit to not look like a garage. Plantings around it or not, it looks like a freestanding garage. And I think, yeah. And then the last thing is, was trying to help somebody get into WebEx, so I didn't hear. I'm hoping that there will be no music at all, because with doors open, music will come out, and I am a person who loves to be in the park and not hear music. So that's my question. 2 questions. Can you do a little something to that to make it look not like a garage? And number 2, can, just a little something. And 2, can we have no music whatsoever?
So I'll answer the second question first on the music. The intent is just to have ambient music, and it'll be in the interior part of the building, which will always be closed off. So really will not be, there really should not be any noise that spills out into the park. Those 2 wings will be, from my understanding, is it'll be music free. There might be a time when they bring in, a guitarist or something background as a special kind of thing.
I'm sorry, repeat that?
They could bring in, somebody, a string guitar or something, but
Okay.
the music is Parks does not allow amplified music, period. We do allow interior music, that can be ambient music, but it should be at decibel levels that really should not be loud enough to escape the building. We're not talking, DJ here and that kind of party. That's not what this facility is about.
Okay, and there won't be like wide open windows that let that ambient noise.
So like I said, those 2 wings will be open, but that's not where that music will be. The music will be more in that interior space, the center space of the existing building, which will always be enclosed.
Okay, thank you.
And
Can you visit the garage?
I'll leave that to you, Jonathan. But I'll preface it by saying, we spent a lot of time on that building. It's gone from a metal sided structure that was reflective to a much more scaled down, simple building. We heard from the Public Design Commission extensively, and our own designers here at Parks on what's the right approach. And we're still debating the color and some of the finer details of it. And we really do want it to be contextual with the existing building, respectful of it, but really definitely subordinate to, and not something that jumps out at you in the landscape. And that's why, I think some of the earlier versions where we were, trying to make it disappear by being reflective might not have been as successful as this kind of a little bit more utilitarian, but simple structure, where it's really just meant for you not to jump out and get your attention. It really is we're hoping it does blend into the landscape, and the landscape does add an element of making it kind of very subtle and go away. Mm-hmm. But I'll leave it to Jonathan to kind of expand a little bit more on that.
Yeah, I think a big way in which we are trying to do this is through the details, and these things are obviously a little hard to come through in just visualizations, but the masonry that we're looking to use is, it's not just like your everyday masonry. Like it has a nicer finish. It's like it has more texture to it. There's more going on. So we were doing as much as possible to kind of take it away, while, as Tony is saying, and actually we, to be fair, we were in some ways, also pushed in this direction where most of the comments were really to make it be the utilitarian building, because this other building is really the important one. It's the showstopper. It has the history. So don't compete with it. Make a separation from it. So we are really trying to walk a line here of doing that. And we're trying to be very careful with our material choices and our detailing throughout the construction of this, to make it be a simple and elegant thing that is not, too harsh, and that has other elements that help with that, such as planting and whatnot, and I think that, you see it all the time. A wall is just a wall, and then you put plants on it and it becomes something so much more. And so our hope is that we can be creative in those ways to sort of tackle all the different inputs that we are considering.
Thank you, Jonathan. Marie, I can't see my chat. How many more people do we have asking questions? Marie?
I'm sorry. I'm looking at is Katie Denny has a hand raised.
All right, then.
Katie Thompson has a question. There's some questions that were put in the questions and answers or in the chat. That's and it's a Mr. Lawrence Drucker.
All right.
So, do you want to go through the list? I'll go down the list.
We'll give everybody, of course, we'll give everybody the opportunity to make whatever comments they'd like to. Sure, go ahead. If you know who came in first, you could do it that way, Marie.
Okay, I have to. You know, it takes a little bit of time to get them up.
Sure.
Katie Thompson. Katie, can you speak?
Yes, I asked a question earlier, and it's Catherine, by the way, but it was answered. I just asked a question about the licensing agreement.
Oh.
But Anthony Macari answered the question. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Go ahead, Marie. Next person.
Katie Denny. Katie? Katie Denny?
Nothing? Hello?
Katie, you're unmuted. Can you speak? Katie?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. So I had a couple questions in the chat that you can ignore since thank you for letting me speak.
Sure.
I had a couple questions about maintenance, and I believe this was asked before in a prior meeting, but through the license agreement, I'm wondering how the revenue that comes in, if it would be restricted to McCarran Park or Community Board 1, and how that would work. And also a second maintenance question. You had mentioned landscaping around the building. So where is the jurisdiction where the concessionaire stops and park starts in terms of maintaining not just the building, but it sounds like landscaping around it?
So as far as the license fees, all of our licenses go into the general fund, the city's general fund. So it doesn't unfortunately go directly into the surrounding park, and that's it goes into for all city services. The good part of that is there is a formula that's used by the revenue generated that Parks' budget is somewhat based on. So the more we earn, the more Parks in general gets for its staff and for maintenance obligations. Now, in the license agreement, where you do get a direct benefit, again, is from the license agreement. The concessionaire will now pick up the responsibility of maintaining those bathrooms, which is a big thing. They also are responsible for a 50-foot radius around their licensed premises. So there's a licensed premises, which is basically you see that patio area and the area with the new satellite building and in front. But it goes 50 feet beyond that they're responsible for maintaining. So there should be absolutely no debris from this concession. And if there's debris or anything else from outside, they're responsible for that. And they're responsible for the plantings within that zone too. So there'll be, the tree maintenance, tree pruning, watering, or any care that the landscape needs in that general area will all be picked up by the concessionaire, which helps our staff be able to go further out into the park and do other things that normally would be spent taking care of. Again, the restrooms. Restrooms a big thing. that's a big thing that we get. That's a big relief to our parks staff and frees them up to do other things elsewhere in the park.
So thank you. That's helpful. I think we brought this up in the original meeting, like a year ago, when the designs were first presented in person, and I think that there was some comments then and requests to potentially have the revenue go toward McCarran Park, and I'm wondering if, obviously the contract or the agreement is what it is, but if, I get speaking to the concessionaire, if in the longer term, there does seem to be a direct impact on McCarran Park because of increased business driven by the concession, would, additional support specifically for McCarran be something you might be interested or willing to do?
Again, we can, if there's a specific impact of the concession, we can work with the concessionaire to again expand their maintenance. The case you're talking about is if it's wildly successful, then it may be a bigger impact, and hopefully in that case, then we'll ask them for more resources to maintain the park. We don't anticipate that here. We do think this is intended to be a casual cafe that for the park users and for families to go and visit. So we don't see this as another like Shake Shack where it's gonna, there's gonna be lines out the door and people coming from all the country to go and have a burger and overrun this little park. It's really meant to be an amenity to the park. That's what we see, and that's why one of the reasons planned operations is the other part that we evaluate, and that's where Brooklyn Bazaar scored off the charts on our ratings because they really were sensitive to the park itself, and they have a history of doing that and blending into the park and being complementary to it and not overtaking it. It is, the license agreements, the funding and all that is part of, the city charter and the franchise concession review committee. And that really dictates where the money goes. So it's not really a park's decision. It's part of the franchise rules that dictates where the funds go.
Right. Yeah. The question was more toward the concessionaire if they would be willing to support the maintenance of McCarran beyond the agreement should an impact be demonstrable.
Sure. I don't want to speak for Brooklyn Bazaar. They're not here today, but our concessions have a history of jumping in. It's in their interest to support the park that they're in. So where there's community groups and things, it's not unusual that they make contributions or help in other ways. And that's something we do look for, and moving forward, if they do want this back, at the end of this license term, their community engagement is a big part of it. And it was also a part of their proposal, that they're willing to work with community groups and reach out and help the park itself.
Okay.
Great. I actually have one more question, if I may,
Sure.
and this is the last one, I promise. And it's more for parks and the sort of the community can't necessarily tell the difference between this project and other capital projects. So this is not being a parks project, but a private project. With the inquiries of other capital projects in the area being delayed, I was wondering what the sort of timeline is for other projects, or how that's being communicated as people are seeing that this is underway and others are still not necessarily moving forward. And so I was wondering if we could have an update on the other projects as well.
Well, I mean, my world is.
Hold on. Before we get, wait a minute, this is Phil. Before we will answer that question. Let's finish this part up, and then Mary we'll save that question for when we're done, and Mary could just bring us up to speed. What else is going on, if that's okay with you? Does that work for you guys?
Sounds good, Bill.
Yeah. Okay. Save that question. We'll put that on the back burner for a second. And Marie, if you want to go to the next participant.
Mr. Lawrence? Lawrence Strucker?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, sure.
Thank you. Just a few questions. What's the proposed, how far does the proposed plan encroach into the grassy area behind the structure? And that's including the patio area. How many feet out will that extend from the present footprint?
Sure. So, I mean, the current extensions, they stick out only to just within the extents of the existing park house back area, and so basically on the M&O side, or on okay, on one side that is already not used for the public as it's part of the path to the M&O, so we're not taking up any new space. On the other side, that's been, a large part of that was taken up by a generous yew hedge that was wrapping the building, and was kind of a not very highly utilized portion of the park. It's sort of dark over there, so we're filling that area there. And then the patio itself extends about 12 feet into the park, which is just before the first, there's kind of like a couple of trees that are there. So we come just before that, which is sort of a dipped area. I've definitely spent a lot of time in this park, both before this project, but also, of course, during it. And, to our eyes, we were really not affecting most of the use. It basically, as we've seen it, really goes under the trees, out in the more like larger green kind of oval area. So yeah, that's sort of our extents.
And the oval area, I think that you're referring to behind as you get closer to the Lorimer Street side.
Correct. Yeah.
So that's an area where people picnic and where they have off-leash hours for dogs to run in the morning. That's the area we're referring to.
Yeah, right.
So your proposal is to take away 12 feet of the public space for those purposes, correct?
It is still public. It's still public space. Anybody can go in and sit down there. They don't have to buy anything. It's a transition space from the concession, which is inside, to the seating area outside. But those seats are open to the public. All our concessions, anybody can go in there if they want to sit down, bring their own coffee or bring their own sandwich, they can. We hope that they go inside and grab, some delicious coffee and a delicious sandwich and sit there. But it is all public. Their concessions are not, these are license agreements, which means it's not alienation of parkland. It's part of the park.
So, but it's transitioning from what's now grass area to a patio with seating that's intended to be used with the concession, correct?
Correct. That's correct.
And the cafe, will that ever be closed off for private events where the public will be excluded?
I mean, I certainly can't speak to that. I'm just the architect, unfortunately.
Yeah, there are provisions in their license agreement that if the entire facility is to be closed, it's subject to parks approval. They have to notify us. There's all kinds of restrictions on doing that. It's more likely that maybe one of the wings becomes a small private party for 10, 15, 20 people. Than the whole facility being taken over. That's really not the intent of this concession.
It's something that's permitted under the license agreement?
It's permitted subject to a parks approval, specific approval per event.
And
again, and that's typical of all our license agreements, and we do discourage shutting down a facility for an event unless it's after hours or before hours or not during. And we do, we usually try and have a portion always open to the public during the normal operating hours.
Is the license agreement available for public viewing so we can see what exactly the deal is for the use of the building?
Yeah, so at this point, you can submit a FOIL request to Parks and ask to obtain a copy of the license agreement. I'll actually, I could put in the chat the email address that you can send a request to.
Do you know what the proposed hours of operation are for the cafe?
They'll operate during the park's open hours.
Do you think you could share a copy of the licensing agreement with the community board, with the committee? Rather than having to foil
it. Tony, is that something?
I'm not sure of our policy.
Yeah.
We could circle back and check.
We'll get back to you on that. But I'll provide you guys with the FOIL email address anyway, and and we'll get back to you on that.
Okay. Are we good? Are we good to move forward? Oh, Marie, next participant.
I believe Mr. Lawrence was the last one.
Okay.
Question.
Okay. So if there's no more questions, we'll thank everybody here for their participating, and we'll just got a few more little items before we close the meeting.
I'm sorry. There was a gentleman who had a question.
Go ahead.
A Lance Kushner. Lance, do you have your question? I don't know. He's not answering.
Give him just a few more seconds. Is he there someplace, Marie? Or he left?
No, he's still here, but he's not answering.
Okay. If he comes back.
Can anyone hear me? Can anyone hear me? Hello.
Hello. Yes.
Yes, we hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we do.
Okay. Thanks, guys. I'm new here, and quite frankly, as I'm looking at the board, I'm not even sure who's with the community and who's with the city. I was invited in by Katie. If I could just have a second.
Sure.
And thank you all. And it's very interesting. I live in 101 Bedford, right across the street. I've lived here for about 5 years, and I've played ball in this park for 15. I'm in the park every day. The discussions and the stuff that's going on right now is kind of almost bizarre to me, and I'll let you know why. These fields are the worst fields in the city right now. They're the worst maintained. I play even ball with Mayor de Blasio here, and he's like, who do I speak to? And we're talking about putting in a concession when the local businesses are doing so poorly because of COVID. We play in a softball league where we're sponsored by 4 or 5 bars in the local areas and Parkview Market and everybody who depends on selling whatever, sandwiches, drinks. The concession area that you're speaking to looks over a field that if it rains becomes toxic, and it's the highest level of lead content in the city. I've played ball in Harlem, in Bronx, in neighborhoods, and funny thing is I play with kids that are 20 and 30 years old, but I'm 57 years old, so I have a different type of perspective. You go throughout the city, there are wonderful turf fields everywhere. The blacktop here, I've spoken with the hotel owners. They've said they've begged to put turf down instead of making it look like a sandlot. Conversely, I look at us, in lack for a better word, like the bastard child, because across the street is a soccer field with misters so that they can cool off with the water. Where we were supposed to get our fields fixed, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago. And if you take a walk in there tonight, you will be amazed. And I don't know how many people live in the area or are just working in the area or work for the city or whatever, and I appreciate the landowner versus I'm just a renter. I get that. But the park is mostly comprised of younger people. I don't see that many quote unquote families or people that are looking for the tavern on the green, which would be the tavern on the lead at this point. But it is a horror show. And right now I've been given a ticket for walking my dog slightly on the grass by about 5 park people. While at night, it might as well be Lion King for what's running on in there. And the holes in the field are almost not playable. Well, since we don't have permits now, we go to play ball like we've done for 20 years at night, and there's Frisbee players setting up in the middle, and then there's a spillover from the soccer field, and there's almost coming to fistfights at night because suddenly the baseball field's not a baseball field anymore. It's used for everything but that, and there's nobody in the park that works in the park to even regulate, discuss, or do anything. So I'm trying to understand why is a project for concessions when the neighborhood so depends on this park, and that the 3 fields are like in shambles, and yet you go to the soccer field and I'm sure bidets are coming soon. So why is this field so overlooked? Why are these fields so poor condition? And when I did speak to one gentleman in the park, he said, oh, we're going to put a new fence on the dugout. Well, we trip and fall through the holes, and it's horrible. So why is, if we're talking about putting up, again, tavern on the green almost, the green is in shambles. The park in the fields is in shambles. So why is that not being addressed? I just don't understand.
So Lance, let me answer that last question for you. We actually do have funding. So my name is Mary Salagusine. I'm the director for North Brooklyn Parks. So we have funding to redo Field 3, so the Gilroy Field. That will be done spring 2021. The project will start. So that will address the drainage issues on the field. We also would be putting a new backstop there. So that's just one portion of the project. We're also going to be replacing the sports lighting on that field because the sports lighting is in bad condition. So that project will start in the spring. Fields 2 and 3, we were going to redo this March or April, but then COVID hit and we weren't able to use the resources for that. So that's still on our agenda to do, but that will be using in-house borough resources for. But again, we will be doing the fields that you're talking about to address the drainage issues, to replace the natural turf with natural turf. The ancillary electric building that's right next to the field, we're also going to be replacing. To make it a little more attractive, a little more workable on the site. And then we're going to be putting in, the water fountains, some bleachers and other sort of features of the park space there.
Excuse me, that sounds great. I just remember, and tell me if I'm wrong, these were plans a couple years ago. And what we heard was, you know what, we spent way too much money on the track, so we have no money for you guys. Is that true?
No, I don't know. I'm sorry that someone said that too. We will be doing it. It takes us about 3.5 years for a project, or 3.5 to 4 years to complete a whole entire capital project. So this plan we have had this plan for a while. Several years ago, we had a scoping meeting at the Mcatlan Park Recreation Center, and we will be undertaking the project this spring.
So that starts with Field 3 of Gilroy.
Right. So the Gilroy Field, the large field that you're talking about there. Yep.
Is there any way to put up, and I know you have it by the soccer field, but is there any way to put up those type of lockers, so to speak, where people can keep equipment or leagues can keep equipment so they don't have to drag all the, you know what I'm saying, like the boxes and lock boxes and things like the soccer field has?
Lance, do you have a pen and paper? I can give you my email address and we can talk about it.
Absolutely.
You ready?
Yes.
So my email is Mary, it's MARY .salig, S as in Sam, ALIG, @parks.nyc.gov.
Fantastic. And
Yes.
Just the last thing, I don't know if you guys are involved in the blacktop area, but that also in the corner has a drain that is been drained for, it's been stuffed for so long, it probably has crack needles in it from back in the 80s when I was a kid. So it just gets rain and it's disgusting. I've spoken to the hotel people, and obviously that matters to the people in commerce too, and it gets just rain. It just looks absolutely horrible. I don't believe, and you can correct me, that it's super expensive to take that cheaper turf and put AstroTurf or whatever we call it nowadays. You see, I am old. And,
Yeah, you know, to put AstroTurf down requires drainage. So we would have to excavate and do a lot of work there. But we can talk about options for that area. We've been exploring that for a while. We don't have funding for it right now, but I'm very happy to talk to you about these issues that you brought up.
With that, I'm only asking because, I mean, we've been very successful when things don't come to us of raising our own money. We've raised a tractor for ourselves so we could tractor the field. I mean,
We've worked with your team to get that approved and get that through. So yeah,
what
I
kind of
don't know
money
what
is
the
it for?
I honestly, I don't know what the cost would be,
Sure.
but it's something I'd have to talk to our capital team of. I don't want to give you an estimate that might be, very off base.
Sure. I just mentioned, as I mentioned earlier, it's just that like you go through the Bronx, Brooklyn, Harlem, and they are all like playable and state of the art. And here's one of the most expensive places that you can rent. Sadly, my building that has 300 apartments and had 2 open now have like 75, but that's a state of the COVID. But it's such an expensive place to live, and yet the facilities are so behind.
Yeah.
And I'm
I'm
just making these
happy.
comments. It's not
Yeah.
accusations towards anyone.
I'm very happy to talk to you about it. So please email me.
Phil,
Okay.
Phil,
Yeah,
there's one more person with a question.
Okay, we don't want to leave anyone out, Marie. Let speak. Go ahead.
James?
Hey, can everybody hear me?
Yes, James.
Okay. Hey, everybody. Thanks for doing this. This is James Michael Felder. I run the youth baseball league that plays on Saturday mornings in Mcatlan. And we founded that a couple of years ago. I guess I kind of want to second the sentiment that was just discussed of, I feel like the softball fields, softball 1 and 2, which get a whole lot more use than the Gilroy Field, are just really in atrocious shape. And we have, a lot of coaches that put in a lot of time every week to get those things playable. And I guess I might have missed this because I came in a bit late at the beginning of this meeting, but I guess I don't understand the, allotment of money towards this project, which I don't remember having heard about this in a lot of I've been going to these meetings for 3 years or something like that. In terms of concession stands versus, addressing those 2 softball fields that, we have 100 kids that play on, and there's softball leagues. And then, I guess to go even further, we are completely at capacity and can't let new kids into the league and things like that. And yet there's the asphalt across, on the other side of Bedford that could be totally usable. So I guess, I'm not sure I understand the sort of the thinking behind that.
So James, the concession project is a privately funded project. The Mcatlan softball field project is funded using city capital funds. So that's the distinction between the two. I'm reminded you and Lance brought up the softball 2 and 3. We did just work with Central Park Conservancy to do some aeration and retilling of the lawn area at fields 2 and 3. We were hoping that would bring a little life back to the lawn area there. But we do intend to go back in with our parks crews. Again, this was intended for this spring, and we just were not able to do it because of COVID. But we hope to address fields 2 and 3. We don't have any funding for the asphalt field that you're talking about, but we do have, like I said, the capital funding for the Gilroy Field, and that project will be starting in the spring.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Marie, Katie,
and I put
Laguardia has a question.
Marie, anybody else on?
I think Katie Nabotovsky has a question.
Okay, I think go ahead. Yeah, I know she has a concern about the Gilroy Field. I think she wanted to make a comment.
I'd love to. Hello?
Go ahead, Katie.
Okay, you can hear me now. So thank you, Trina. Thank you, Marie. And I guess I have to ask, I have to wonder why, when I put it in the chat that I'd like to ask a question about the ball field project, somehow it wasn't seen. And I'm not just speaking for myself, I'm speaking for other people who come to meetings and, you know, want to ask. And I hope the process gets worked out. I want to just thank Mary, the security, for all that they do in the park. I try to when I can because I think they do a really good job. And since we're on Mcatlan, if they can just keep on top of the hammocks, then on top of the amplified music, and they're really great. And I know they've really cracked down on the dogs recently on the ball fields, and that's fantastic. So I had a question. I know that the project for redoing Ball Field 1 is $6 million. And I would love at the next meeting to see how it costs $6 million, because I'm curious and also concerned. I know we did 2 ball fields in Park Slope, and it cost Prospect Park, it cost $1.5 million. I guess the lights cost a lot of money, but it's really a shame that both fields cannot be redone. Do all those lights need to be redone? What are they? They must cost they must cost a hell of a lot of money. So I'm wondering if the next meeting, this can be put on the agenda to look at specifically what the cost is. Just as a citizen that goes to the parks all the time, I would love to see that, and to see if somehow there can be some money set aside for maintenance of the ball fields. I know it's capital money versus maintenance money.
Unfortunately, we can't use capital money for that.
Okay, and right. Okay, so is there some way? Can it? It's too much maybe to be addressed here, but can we have? I'm asking the board, I guess, and Mary, if at the next meeting, ball fields can be put on the agenda again to look at the cost of the capital and what exactly is being done. And then also for the ball field guys to be able to raise their issues again, more lengthy and maybe, as an agenda item to get some of these issues, about ball fields.
So I put my email address in the chat area. James and Lance, you can see it there. You're welcome to email me with what issues there are at the ball field, and I'll talk to our team about that. I don't know if I can give you like a breakdown of the budget. I don't know how that works. It might be another foil. But similar to Eric and Anthony, I'm going to have to just ask around to see if I can just mail you something. But I can tell you that capital projects are very expensive, and we try to find savings everywhere that we can. If the lights didn't need to be replaced, we wouldn't be replacing them. But Katie, I'm happy to talk to you about that.
Yeah, I would. I hope that we can get an overview of that to see if there's any way to, I don't know, maybe all the lights don't have to be replaced. Maybe, I don't know. And also just it does last thing said, taking out that whole field. What's the time frame on taking out that whole field? Like how long is that project going to take?
It is a 365-day contract. So the contract was spring 2021 to spring 2022.
Wow. Well,
and it did go through the community board, Katie.
Yes, I know it did.
These questions were asked then too.
Yes, I know. That's going to be hard to miss that during that field is so used by everybody.
I know. Unfortunately, that's just it with every time we close a playground, it's the same thing. You don't want to close something for an entire year, but it will be a vast improvement once it's reopened. And we hope that maybe it can get done sooner. Some projects are done faster, but it doesn't happen all the time that way. Some good news is that, and I emailed the board about this earlier, but since we're here, I'll mention that we were able to open LaGuardia Phase One today. So LaGuardia is down by the Williamsburg Bridge near Continental Emery Plaza. It's not the side or the piece of LaGuardia that's across from El Puente, but on the other side. That's where we redid the sports courts. You might recall that we brought this to the community board
Yes.
several years ago. And we actually took out the handball and put in a skateboard park. And we were told, absolutely not, don't do that. So we took out the handball.
Yeah.
Yep. And so those were resurfaced. And there's adult fitness. There's nicely redone new basketball courts. And the seating area is really gorgeous. So I know today and tomorrow are not going to be ideal days to go check it out. But if you're in the neighborhood, I would suggest checking it out.
Thank you, Mary.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Phil?
Go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, I just want to note, I have an issue that I'd like to bring up, a new business thing.
Mm-hmm.
And Katie Denny also wanted to bring something up related to capital projects in general. The thing I want to bring up is not too far back, the massive mixed-use development on West Street between Quay and Oak, what's called 1127 West. Originally, they had a dog run plan for their open space, open space design. And then, I don't know, in the more recent future, I heard that it was taken off the table. And just in light of the demand for recreational dog space, is just off the charts, and it's ever increasing as more and more of these developments come online. And our current, dog runs, just seem to be at capacity. And then small parks like Newtown and Transmitter, there's this kind of constant conflict between, with off-leash dog owners and non, and et cetera. So, and the reason I asked, I just feel like, that, the city, they created this urban planning scheme with all these developments, and they know that it's going to bring an X amount of new residents, and it's going to bring an X amount of more dogs. I feel like it's a, responsibility, should be a responsibility of developers to help with that infrastructure. And Greenville Landing will have a small dog run, and Domino already has one. I know some people they're not the best dog runs in the world, according to some people. I don't know, but anyhow, I'm just wondering how, if that could be brought on. It just feel like, it just feels like very,
Should we say goodbye to the nice McCarran Park people and let them, or do you guys want to stick around, or do you want to?
Yeah, let the McCarran Park people go. Thank you for the concession. Thank you very much for your time. Yeah,
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mary, you stick around.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Good night. Thanks again.
Thank
Yeah, Steve, I'm like really amazed, because that's like every new park we put in, we have a dog run in. I'm very surprised at this.
So, Steve, did you hear this through like the developers, the contractors, or where did you hear that?
Yeah, I'm on an email list. Alyssa Alberti, Oak Street Block Association. She contact. They have a community liaison. I forgot her name, Linda something. And so through her, it was indicated that they were not there. That a dog run was pulled off of the design, and so.
So this is a property that is not going to be transferred to parks. So we don't have, I don't get updates on this, and we don't initiate that. We haven't initiated the change, I should say. This is a project that went through city planning and is certified. So any change that they make to the design has to go back through city planning, right? So I don't know.
A dog run would fall under that.
Well, if they changed the design of the park, then they are changing the certified drawings, right? So they have to certify the drawings. But what I can do is I can check in with the Department of City Planning and just inquire as to whether or not there have been made any changes, if this dog run is still going to be there, if it's not. And if it's not, I'm going to find out why and hopefully put them in touch with you.
Okay.
I have not heard this, but I can find out for you.
Okay, that would be great.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just along those lines, just with the McCarran dog run, feels like, I guess it's not, I guess the standard operating dog run that's built these days. And I hear a lot of complaints about the state of that. I know, just totally keeping COVID and the COVID economy in mind, but if they're like a redo of that dog run and or finding another spot to create an additional dog run in the park might be considered.
I mean, COVID, we were going to have a big dog meeting about dogs off leash and dog runs.
Yeah,
And
we always wanted to, right, Trina? We always said we wanted to have one.
then COVID hit.
Those are hard meetings, yeah.
Yeah, because
Yeah, I mean,
Question?
you know, like, and the gentleman brought that, the gentleman who was commenting about the parks. It is, I walk around a lot. There's a lot of people who have their dogs in the park, off leash, or even in the park, urinating on the grass. It is something we have to talk about.
Is that a sanctioned off leash time at McCarran before 9 o'clock?
so there's actually no off-leash hours at McCarran Park. The presence of a dog run in the park eliminates the off-leash hours.
Yep.
So, like parks that have off-leash hours don't have a dog run.
And I understand is ball fields and courts are always off limits
Always off limits.
for all dogs,
Always.
leash or otherwise.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. I see Lawrence and James have their hands up
Thank
in
you.
the attendees area.
Marie, could you put Lawrence on?
Thanks. I think I'm on. You,
Go ahead.
So thank you, Steve, for raising the point. With respect to West Street, I relayed this to Steve privately. It's really terrible that the developer pulled that out of the project, but I think it's misguided to rely on private developers. I've heard the same type of promise about the Blue Slip development, that there would be a dog run coming in there. And, this is, I think, a city obligation to the citizens. There's a tremendous number of dogs in this neighborhood. There have been for quite a while, and it's just exploded since COVID. The shelters are empty. Everywhere you go in the streets of the neighborhood, people are walking dog, and there simply is not enough city-run dog runs to support the dog population in this part of Brooklyn. The dog run at McCarran is undersized. It's a shambles. It's a mud pit. Even on a good day, both the dogs and the owners need baths when they leave there. There's no source of running water. The surface is just dirt. It's absolutely horrible. It's undersized, and there had been, I guess it was an unofficial, I didn't know this, Mary, that it was not allowed. The dog owners in the neighborhood had believed that it was a 9 p.m. to 9 a.m. off leash period, and that was largely, it had been behind where the new proposed cafe is, in that grassy area toward the Lorimer side of the park, by Lorimer and Nassau. And so the dog owners were the baseball fields instead, which I understand completely why that would be objectionable and create a whole new raft of problems. But it's a symptom of the fact that there simply isn't enough space for dogs to run in this neighborhood. Transmitter Park, as Steve notes, there is tension because people don't want to see a park destroyed by dogs, and dog owners need a place for their dogs to run. And there is no dog run in that park. It's a small park. There's no dog run. So what we're left with as dog owners, it's for the entire neighborhood, for the probably thousands of dogs in Greenpoint. It's McGolrick, which is small and filthy, and on the other side of Greenpoint. There's McCarran, which is a disaster, and nothing else for the rest of Greenpoint, which is really a shame, and it's just a disservice to the people in the neighborhood, and it's going to get worse. And I understand there's been a crackdown recently. There's been a lot of ticketing, and that, okay, they'll scare up the dog owners, but it doesn't solve the problem.
Okay, it's an issue we all going to look into. Thank you for your time. We appreciate your concern. We are going to, we've been trying to do, once we can get together, we will address this issue.
It would be nice if some of the developers that, some of these lots that are empty for a period of time, if they could open temporary dog runs at
Yeah.
least.
The Greenpoint Landing lot, the blue slip there, it's in their next phase. If you're familiar with the site, as you walk down towards that triangular lawn area, the construction site was to your right, the newer building was to your left. There was a triangular planted area, and that triangular planted area will be the dog run. It's for the phase of construction that they're now doing.
There's a beautiful vacant lot on the southeast corner of India and West Street. Time for the taking to turn into a beautiful dog park.
Yeah.
Okay, Marie, who's the last participant that wants to speak?
I think that was it.
Katie, I think, has another comment.
Katie Denny.
And Katie
Nabotovsky.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I know Katie Denny had a question about capital projects, which was a really good question. But I just wanted to say, in terms of the dog runs, that I hope that all that force and energy of the dog owners can coalesce and look for spaces. And look at the project that Steve was talking about and really advocate for dog runs. Yeah.
Mary, could you just answer her question about the capital project? How are they moving forward? Are they being held up because of COVID?
Yeah, so we've had there have been a range of things going on. So when COVID hit, everything was put on hold. Capital projects that were in process were stopped. Procurement, everything just was again put on hold. Slowly, things started moving again. So there were projects like the Red Hook ball fields, which are, there's an EPA involvement down there. There's a very large lead contamination. So those projects, because the open ground, were started to move right away. Projects that we had in construction, like Penn Triangle, that also was able to resume. We had some projects then that have started since, like Sternberg and Bartlett. I think that my understanding was that they were very close to leaving procurement. But, this is Parks advocating for projects to start, working very closely with OMB. And it's OMB that gives us the go-ahead to resume projects or to start projects back up. So we are, we wait to get the okay from OMB to move forward again on projects.
Right. Okay, Mary, thank you, Mayor.
Yep, you're welcome.
And with that, I think we'll adjourn the meeting. Is everyone on board?
Can I just ask a procedural, Marie, in the attendee list, if somebody has an exclamation next to their name, what does that mean? Okay. Like Lawrence and Lance have exclamation points next to the left of their names.
Steve, if you hover over it, it says this attendee is not paying attention, which of course we know is not true, but.
I didn't want to say that because I found that to not be true either. Either they're not moving their mouth or
How does WebEx determine that?
Mary, I have a question. Just going back to the McCarran Park House, they did not need to come back and formally answer the community board because it's not a capital project. It was a concession project, and their coming to the community board in the first place was kind of a courtesy. Is that how that works?
They don't need community board approval to move forward with the concession projects. But we would always come to you and try to address all of your concerns, which is why they put together that letter that said, this was the concern and this is what we did. For other projects that use public funds, like the Mcatlan Park softball field, we are required to come to you for your approval.
And you have to work it till the full board approves.
Yeah, like we did with Backstreet, like we did with Motiva, all of those projects. So that's
I
that.
just feel like, again, as what I said before, just doing a major alteration, but additionally, we're adding an addition to the park. I just feel like that kind of goes above and beyond just a concession project. I feel like, I feel like
This was kind of a
bit more than just.
Because there are the two rules, right? The dual approvals that we need for our capital projects, and then it's just one with PDC. So it's not like we decide what happens or the concession decides what happens and then moves forward. We do still have to go to PDC. So there is that other layer of approval, but I understand what you're saying 100%.
And there really is absolutely no place that building, the garage really needs to be right next to the Karen.
It would be very hard for maintenance and PEP staff to function really efficiently if we had like all of their tools and vehicles and everything in a different spot than where their locker rooms are, or the supervisor might be, or their break room, all of those things. So it's just, and when we're talking about vehicles too, I just want to clarify that we're not talking about like big parks, like pickup trucks. These are the same gators. It's the same gators that you're seeing. So the building, the ancillary building, has space for us to charge and to park those 4 vehicles every night, and then it'll have storage.
We've moved to such an iconic, beautiful park house building, and to gunk it up with the concession and then to throw the building next to it, it's just terrible. And irreversible too. I mean, that's the hard thing. But we should all go eat dinner.
Just one last. Can I just say one last thing? On the topic of the capital projects, Mary, can you just send us an updated list then, if any of our capital projects are going to be delayed or being held up, which ones they are, and what the expected revised dates are? Because I know you sent us a list of capital projects recently. It sounds like
I don't have, I can't tell you what a revised date might be if a project is delayed, or I can continue every month to send you those capital projects, and I'm very happy to. But if we know that like a project is delayed, I don't necessarily get like a date when it will start again.
Is there any, does the community board or the community have any, sway if we start making noise and say does it make any sense for people?
So why don't I do this? Why don't I ask if there's someone that you can write a letter to, just asking for clarity and asking for projects to move forward. I know that Parks is doing this as well for projects throughout the entire Parks portfolio. We, of course, have a lot of capital projects and investment in our parks, both by community members, elected officials, by the mayor, by the borough presidents, that we would love to see moving forward too. So I can look into that and see if there's some place where you can send a letter.
Yeah, and then Phil, maybe
voice.
you could ask at the board meeting for the letter to be approved, and then we could get the letter out the next month. After the board meeting.
I'll try to get you that information as soon as possible.
Okay. Good night, everybody. Good
night.
Good night, everyone. Good night. Stay safe, everybody.
You too, Phil.